You're listening to the voice of Hawke's Bay, Radio Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I mean, after 27 years of being Radio Kidnappers, we decided it's time for a bit of a change. Not only have we changed the name, but we are changing the place too. We are going to be on the corner of Hastings and St Albans Street as of the 1st of September.
I look forward to coming and see you in your swanky new premises.
Yeah. And what's the name of this programme?
This is the wonderful, fantastic, fabulous, amazing world of Wardini books.
Yes, it is indeed. It's my pleasure, as always, to have you in the studio. And we're going to talk about 3 fabulous books. And we were having a bit of a chat before we came to where? Polaris Jack, I would say. What would you say?
I don't know.
No.
And I wish I'd looked it up now because I've heard it pronounced Pelorus.
Yes.
And I think I would have gone there, but I've heard so many people call it Pelorus.
Really?
Polaris Jack. So
I've never heard
Pelorus. Shall we go with Polaris Jack?
We'll go with Polaris Jack because never in my 68 years have I heard of Pelorus.
Pelorus Jack.
Pelorus.
It's got a more of a flow, but
Pelorus.
that's okay.
Sounds like a pirate name. Pelorus Jack.
Pelorus Jack. Well, this is Pelorus Jack, the Dolphin Guide.
Yes.
And the book, this beautiful picture book, is written by Susan Brocker and illustrated by Raymond McGrath. And it is about Polaris Jack.
Yes.
You are familiar?
Yes, I know Polaris Jack.
So I didn't realise it was so long ago.
Yeah, no, it's been around a long time.
Victorian, isn't it? Sort of 1888, I think I read, the first sighting. Yes. So the first sighting, a crew of a ship saw a white fish that appeared to be guiding ships in and out of the Marlborough Sounds.
Very famous.
Yeah. So this is the story, anyway. Past 4 children and people like me that have not heard the whole story before. So a white dolphin that we now know as a Risso's dolphin. And there he is, noodling along. And big white square head that had identified him as a male Risso's dolphin. And nobody knows where he came from or why he rocked up in the Marlborough Sounds, but he appeared to be a very rare dolphin, and he's the only one that was, so presumably maybe looking for a family, looking for a mate, but did not find such, and just decided that he was going to hang and look after the ships. So that the book and its beautiful illustrations imagine the adventures of Polaris Jack underneath the water.
Yeah.
Because there he is chasing around a school of happaku and saying, "Will you please play with me?" And they're going, "No, because you probably want to eat it." And he probably did.
Line up his
the
lunch.
subtext there, I think, is that he's probably going to scoff them.
Yeah, that's right.
And saying hi to a crayfish. And then, he feels vibrations of a big thing in the water, and it's not a creature, it's a ship. And
What
he's
a
like, "Oh, this
cool-
is fun.
Yeah.
I can just play." And he plays in the wake of the ship, and that's where it all begins. So he's obviously quite a young fella at that point. And at one point, so he becomes beloved, and there are lovely things like young Hannah talking to Rudyard Kipling. Apparently this must be part of history.
Yeah, he must have come here.
He must have come here, and he must have been on a ship that saw Pelorus Jack.
Jack,
I'm just doubting myself every time I try and say it now. And she tells him, he's a guide. He's like our Tanafa that guided Coupe to Aotearoa, and there's a conversation about Tanafa and Coupe, and Rudyard Kipling is educated by Hannah, and at some point as well there's a terrible, terrible incident in which someone tries to shoot him from this one ship, and they've tackled him to the ground. They're like, "Get off our dolphin!"
Yeah.
And Jack never ever guides that particular ship ever again.
Really?
Yeah. So he knows the sound of it or something. And, wonderful, wonderful thing, after that, a petition was sent to Parliament to say, protect this animal. And it was believed to be, Jack became the first creature ever protected by law in any country.
Wow.
You cannot shoot at this creature. And then years later, as a young lady, it finishes quite beautifully, when years later, Hannah, as a young woman, is back on the ship looking for her dolphin, and she can't see him, and he's somewhere around 1912 was the last sighting, and people believe that he just died of old age, and he'd been guiding ships for 24 years.
What a shame he didn't wash up on the beach, and then we could have preserved him and put him in a museum all day. That would.
It's always quite interesting, isn't it? I always think, with birds, you see them eaten by cats and squashed in the road, but where do they? When they just die of natural causes, where do they go?
There must be millions of sparrows lying dead somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Maybe it's Hawks Day.
Sparrow's
Yeah.
Graveyard
Those big
somewhere.
hawks. I love watching hawks.
Oh, they're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're beautiful.
So anyway, isn't that a beauty?
That is the beauty. And who's going to appeal to him? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of history in there.
Yeah.
But who's going to read that book?
Who's going to read that book? So I would say schools. It'd be perfect for school children, and they could do little projects on it. You know, that'd be quite gorgeous, wouldn't it? For baby history. And I think people that would buy it, there's going to be quite a few grandparents buying it to send to overseas children, you know. This is New Zealand history, part of New Zealand history. And I just really enjoyed reading it myself.
Two bits of fabulous trivia in there. First of all, that I didn't know is that Rudyard Kipling came here, and that Polaris Jack was the first protected animal in the world.
And that's the great thing about these books, because there was one on Friday the Rebel Dog, if you remember. I think I brought that in, and then there was another one too, and I can't remember what it was, which is terrible of me. But in the back they put a lot more text, you know, with history, the extended history of what Susan's just talked about in the book, what she's passed for children.
And is that a statue of Pelorus Jack somewhere?
Yeah. So, a life-size bronze sculpture of Polaris Jack stands at Collinet Point, overlooking French Pass. Well, if it's French Pass, then let's talk about pronunciation. Is that Collinet?
Yes, it would be.
Is it Collinet Point, overlooking French Pass?
Oh,
Point. Collinet Point.
Collinet Point. Point, point, point.
Talking out of my dolphin hole.
Yes.
Right.
All right, Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Academy. No humans allowed.
No humans allowed, Ken.
Yeah,
so this is a chapter book based around the game of Dungeons and Dragons, and I would say it's about a 9 and up. And D&D Dungeon Academy, and it's by Madeleine Roux, who's written lots of young adult novels, and it's illustrated by Tim Probert. Or is it Tim Probert?
Probert.
I don't know.
Tim Probert.
And he is the most amazing illustrator. So you can see it's quite atmospheric on the front. And the illustrations are all the way through. You've got this sort of quite muted, dungeony palette of illustrations all the way through. So what we've got here is you are in a Dungeons and Dragons universe. So it is peopled by trolls and different sorts of creatures and minotaurs. And they are the creatures that if you are a Dungeons and Dragons adventurer, you would probably end up battling. So what we've got here is there's a little kid, Zeladora Stormclash. And she has 2 mothers, both of whom are minotaurs, and she goes to the Dungeon Academy. That's where she goes to school. And it's a little bit complicated for her because they're all learning how to be the bad guys, really. But she's got quite a kind heart, so she has to, whenever she sticks up for someone who's being bullied, she has to kind of do it in a menacing way. And she's got a hell of a roar on her, which she thinks she's learned from her Minotaur mothers, because they've got a hell of a roar. One of her mothers is a professor at the Dungeon Academy as well. Thing is, even though Zeladora's got these horns and this tail, she's not a Minotaur. She's a human. And she's a human baby that her mother's found and adopted. They found her in the forest and looked after her. You know, they were really supposed to do something awful to her, but they just thought she was so beautiful and amazing and cute that they adopted her and kept her. So she's pretending to be a Minotaur, and I'm not sure anyone's actually that convinced. She's got these crappy little horns on and a little tail, and sticks up for the misfits at school. So there's this big creature who's almost like an owl bear cross, and he's supposed to eat, he's vegan, but he's supposed to eat meat, you know, and rip things apart. And then there's this little Drake who's like a little alligator type character, and he's supposed to be very brave and very strong, but he's quite tiny and pathetic. So her and her band of misfits, she's the catalyst to the story moving on is that she's thumbing through a textbook. They're going to be learning about adventurers, and these are the enemy. And she comes across a picture of Aladora Steelstrike. And this woman looks exactly like her. And she's like, oh dear, this is probably who my real mother is then. Right. And she's the enemy. And Zelly has this crisis of confidence, and she's going to run away, and then her little band of misfits go with her. And they're on a sort of a bit of a quest to rescue some older kids that have gone off to fight adventurers and that haven't come back when they were supposed to. So there's all this adventuring going on, and her trying to find out where she fits in. And she will find out where she fits in, and it's not always where you expect to.
Happy ending?
Great ending. And what I really like is that they have this massive fight. big adventures. You know, there's necromancers involved, you know, skeletons being possessed by things and fighting. And she doesn't just go home and it's all happily ever after. She goes home, and although it's not made a massive deal out of, she's a kid and she was frightened, so she has to sleep in the same room as her Minotaur mothers for a bit. So I quite liked that there was that realness to...
Yes.
She's still a kid, even though she is brave and adventurous.
Now, I haven't followed Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, I have heard of it. But is that part of a ginormous series of books, or is that a standalone book written by someone who just thought, I might write a Dungeons and Dragons book?
Yeah, so this one, I think it is going to be a series, and this is an official Dungeons and Dragons book. So it's registered, that is a trademarked thing, and there are all sorts of books and adventures that you can buy within that official thing, and then there'll be loads of
So
spin-offs.
it's like licensed to it, yeah.
Licensed to it, thank you. Yeah, so this is an official one, and this will be a series. We'll be seeing more of Zeladora.
Oh, very good. And our last book we're going to look at today is called Wahine Tui.
Wahine Toy, so arty women, and this is a celebration of 30 Wahine creatives of Tamato and Maui, so very, very local to us. And this is by Putanga, who is the most amazing photographer. And that is her right at the beginning. And it's a book that just came to my attention through a friend who has... So Rasheen Fitzgerald, who is the most amazing poet, she has put the words together about these artists. And I went to the launch of this at Arkina Gallery last night. Have you been to Arkina Gallery yet?
Where is it?
So, you know, in the municipal buildings in Hastings, it's in there.
Oh, right.
And it's a Maori art gallery.
What a great spot.
Oh, it's the most beautiful, beautiful place. So it was launched there last night, and the books are on sale there. We might have them in Wardini Books, we don't know yet. But if you need one, go to Arkina Gallery, because it's worth going in there anyway, just for a look. So it's got all these wonderful people. So there's Abby Merson, who's a painter. I think they've got some of her work in the gallery at the moment. Beautiful floral paintings that she's got. And if I just flick through, Ashley Mertens, who is also a photographer, and then it will tell you about her background and her inspirations and what she's doing in the Bay, which is some really important, beautiful work. Sherry Milo, who's a body art painter. So that person there is wearing very few clothes. They're actually just painted to look like they're wearing those clothes.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It is quite, yes. So it all the way through Claire Sadler, who's working in wood and stone. Like, so, you know, isn't it great? The photography is amazing. And there are all these women out there in Hawke's Bay doing stuff that you might not have heard of. And
what a great coffee table book.
Isn't it beautiful? And they're right on your doorstep. So if you want to find these women's work, you will find them. And there's Sophie Watkins. It's just down the road at Spaceship. She's curated spaces there for lots of different artists. So there's so much going on in the Bay. And I just, I think Putanga's work is very special. And the editing's been great there by Rasheen. Tattoo artists, everybody is in there. So go and check it out.
There is so much good stuff going on in Hawke's Bay that majority of people have got no idea of.
Yeah, that's it. And when you find something like that, I think it's so nice to be able to share it with other people.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, if we want any of these fabulous books, where do we get them?
Well, Wardini Books, that would be great. And we might have Wahine Toy, but at the moment it's available at Arkina Gallery.
Very good. As was my pleasure. You look after yourself. We'll talk to you same time, same place next week.
Cool, thanks, Kim.